Welcome inside another edition of Mic'd Up here, presented by Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. I'm your host, as always, Mike Asti, and I am joined by my Mike counterpart, Mike Vukovcan. We are going to touch on what everyone else is talking about all week long, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger's future, or is that in doubt? As a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin just yesterday talking about Ben actually having a hip injury and discussing how Ben's not as mobile as he once was, but still the best quarterback for this team. Also saying he has confidence in Mason Rudolph. The Steelers have many other issues as well. They're kind of a mess right now at 1-3. And the overlying theme of this show and really of the week in a must-win game for Pittsburgh, can this Steelers season be saved anyway? And can it be saved, of course, with Ben Roethlisberger as the Steelers starting quarterback? So, Mike, good morning to you. Once again, halfway through another week. These weeks fly by here during this fall year. But this is a question.
I'll make a little wager with you.
Okay.
Nothing on your part.
Okay.
I will say that
I like those bets.
If the Steelers don't beat Denver this week,
okay,
I'm taking you out to dinner.
Okay. If they don't beat Denver. Okay.
You pick a place in Robinson.
Okay.
We can meet halfway, and
okay.
Steelers are going to win this week.
Okay, you're that.
I'll tell you that right
confident.
now.
Okay,
it's my cigar game. They're going
to
be over at halftime.
Okay, and they got a tough opponent coming up here for sure. They're back at Heinz Field. They're at home. They have not won a game at Heinz Field, obviously, this year. The one win is on the road against Buffalo, 2 losses at home, then 1 loss on the road as well against the Packers. Coming off the game against Green Bay, it was really, really rough because that was a game the offense looked even worse than it has in recent weeks. The offensive line, maybe some have argued, blocked a little bit better, but Ben certainly didn't hit the receivers, didn't have his best day, and the defense maybe got screwed on a couple calls, and Minka didn't get the return, and they bended, and then they broke, and Aaron Rodgers drove down the field, up and down the field, several possessions in a row, and it was just too much for the Steelers. And I think many, to be fair, and maybe this leans to what you're kind of alluding to, it's obviously a must-win against Denver. It won't be an easy team. That's a tough defense. They are dealing with quarterback situation as well, but Green Bay was a game many people thought would be a loss entering the season, and by far the best quarterback they've faced all year. But you're confident. You're betting to take me out to dinner. I got to think of a place right now because I'm a little less confident. I think they're going to play better. I don't know if I'm as confident that they're going to win the game. Certainly that'll be over at halftime. Before we get into Ben, what makes you so confident in the Steelers winning that game against the Broncos? They got to win for this season to be saved, I'd imagine. You agree with that as well?
Yeah. First of all, I think Denver, one of the bigger reasons I say that is because I think Denver is one of those, I think Denver is an overrated team.
Okay.
I think they're a little product of who they've played so far. I think their quarterback situation's a mess.
Yeah.
I think they're dealing with a ton of injuries. Their best defensive player is out for the year, Bradley Chubb. I just think, but the more important thing is the Steelers have to win. This is the NFL, and the Steelers are gonna win a game, and I think this is it. I don't think they played great against Green Bay. There's a couple plays. Coaches say this, and I think people, laugh as coaches speak. There's a couple plays in a game that turn games around and have potential to switch things around. And the Steelers had them, and they couldn't take advantage. Well, they did take advantage, except the ref put them on the block field goal. And then Ben has to hit those plays to.
That's the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think they're going to play well this week. I thought last week they were going to play, and I think they were in position. I don't like a couple of things Mike Tomlin did, but I just my biggest thing is I don't think Denver's that good of a team, and I think Pittsburgh is, despite what their record is, they have talent on the team to be better than 1-3. I think you put those two things together. Playing at high, I wouldn't be saying this if it was at Denver,
right?
But being at home, I just think the Steelers are due for a win. And they're going to win Sunday.
Yeah, Denver's a tough place to play, obviously, with the elevation, so it'd be a totally different story. But Steelers are home. Steelers talent-wise on the roster might be better than their record right now, but they've also been dealing with injuries. That is part of it. To be fair to the defense, they've been really, really banged up, and they haven't been able to get the splash plays or the takeaways or even the pass rush they have in recent years, certainly when they carried the team 2 years ago. They do need to get more of a pass rush, but getting a pass rush in this game might be easier than it was, say, against Green Bay. However, the devil's advocate stance here is, yeah, the call was bad. I agree. The call was really, really bad, but I don't think that's why the Steelers lost that game.
No.
You mentioned it, the missing the big plays to Juju. That's much more of the reason. Multiple big plays missed to Juju. I do think that was more Ben than Juju, even though Juju took the blame there. Things could turn around, but the issue is, for me, Green Bay's defense, even with the injuries, had been playing worse than even Denver's defense. So you can make an argument the Steelers faced an easier defense than they faced all year in comparison to maybe the Raiders, certainly the Bills, and how they've been playing. And the Steelers just didn't hit those. If they can hit big plays, then it'll be different. I guess I have less confidence that would turn around and they would start hitting big plays. It seems like if you can't hit big plays in this league, you are handcuffed a little bit. They do have to win the game, though. If the Steelers do not win the game against Denver, you think they're going to win, certainly they got to be motivated. And they are hitting Denver at the right time, where Denver's dealing with a quarterback situation that puts them in flux too. If Locke has to play, they're worse off than if the Steelers started Ben or Mason in many respects. And obviously Teddy Bridgewater's there. He makes a little less mistakes, but dealing with a concussion from last week. If hypothetically the Steelers do not win, and this even goes back to the conversation everyone's discussing this week, because we know Ben is going to start this game against the Broncos, hook or crook. He's going to start this game. Tomlin's made that clear. But bringing up the hip injury, et cetera, how he's been playing, missing those big plays, if they would lose, would that at all get you to start thinking maybe Ben should be done this year? Maybe his career as a Steeler should be over, because eventually once you get to 1-4, then you got Seattle, could be 1-5. Or even if you beat Denver, maybe you lose Seattle, you could be splitting those two games. So you're looking at 2-4. It's still a tough road. What would have to occur, and would that then occur to have you believe maybe Ben should be done this year?
Well, the thinking of me and the thinking of Mike Tomlin are two different things.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I would have no problem seeing what Mason Rudolph, even if you want to bring up a fake injury or whatever.
Well, they brought up the hip injury. I don't think it's, I don't know if I'm not going to say it's fake, but it was very convenient timing to bring it up. It almost feels like they're building an excuse in there if they got to do something.
I just think, and I know it's easy for us and fans,
right,
and everyone else to say this. I think it's totally different for Mike Tomlin, considering the history. And I know everyone thinks that you just have to put it past and you have to worry about 21. Those guys have spent a lot of years together. Yeah. And in a way, I just hate ever saying I feel bad because for $1 million players, because I don't feel bad. But I do. It's sad, I think, the way this is ending for Ben, in that, and this is what these athletes put on themselves sometimes, about knowing when to call it quits.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to go out on a bad note. Didn't want to go out on an injury 2 years ago. Didn't want to go out on the interceptions against the Browns. He wants to go out on a positive note, but it's so rare for an athlete, even an all-time great, to go out on a positive note.
Not even positive, but to there was a time that, Ben Roethlisberger was the man in this town. He was the number one, him and Sid were the number one athletes. And Ben could lead us to victory. Now, any crowd that I'm in that brings up the Steelers,
right?
The first thing they talk about is what a bum Ben is and stuff. It's just, he's done too much in his career to this point to have his last year be remembered like this. It's just, I don't know. It's bad, but it's also professional football. And Mike Tomlin, if you have Mason Rudolph on the roster for a reason, you're paying him money to be
another year of money. They signed
another year of money. Sooner or later, you got to find out what the guy is. You can't just But I don't know that's a slippery slope. I just don't know.
That's why I'm asking if it unravels, because Ben is going to start this week no matter what anybody's opinion is.
I would do it. I would do it now.
Okay. See, I would also do it. I would do it now as well. I said this in the post-game show last Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do it now while the season still has some and say whatever you want. You can say he's not feeling right or whatever.
You can use the hip injury now. Feed it in. Yeah.
You owe it to the players on the team that have a chance to get into the playoffs. Do I think he's ever going to do it? No, I don't think.
I think he's not ever going to do it too. The only thing that has started making me believe that at some point maybe he would do it is by bringing up the injury. Tomlin also talked about how I believe Ben's the best quarterback on this roster. He didn't say he believed Ben's the best quarterback in the league. He said best on the roster. That's maybe not saying that much. He also made it clear that Ben is dealing with a hip injury. Tomlin is not a guy who makes excuses and will bring that up. It feels to me like they're not going to do it now, even though I also would, because I would have a thinking of, if you believe and you really are going to be missing the playoffs, or the playoffs are certainly in doubt. It is a tough road right now. There are issues beyond Ben. The offensive line in particular is a problem. Any veteran quarterback, any quarterback of any kind in their prime or otherwise would have problems with this O-line. Then you might as well miss the playoffs by seeing what you have in the next guy. Mike, the worst case scenario for the Steelers would be, and it'd be annoying for us and media, but also the fans in general, is if we're sitting here at the end of this coming summer. So next summer, 2022, they're going into that training camp, and we're still on Twitter arguing about Mason versus Haskins. Should not be happening. You got to see more prior to then. And this now could be your opportunity. So I would do it now. I would have not confidence in the Broncos, Seattle, and beyond that. Then you're coming off the bye against the Browns. They're playing well. The schedule's hard. So I would like to see what I have against Mason, and maybe he is the best option for this team right now, as insane as that is to say. I'm not saying Mason's the greatest, but he can hit big plays. If he can hit big plays, maybe Haskins can hit big plays. Whoever it is, if they can connect with big plays and hit the receivers who are open, they're a better option. Ben is missing those guys. I would do it now. They're not going to do it now, but I do think Tomlin's laying the groundwork that hypothetically, and I don't think it's if they split the next two, then he would go into the bye with Ben and then really think about it probably during that bye week. I'm sure Tomlin would prefer to get into the bye week to be able to have him and Rooney have a sit down. Everyone's off. That if they have to do it, that's best case scenario. But if it would unravel where they lose to Denver, they lose to Seattle, go into the bye, they're really funky, then they maybe would lose to the Browns. I think Tomlin's laying the groundwork where at that point he would have to sit Ben down and say, we now are not making the playoffs this year. It's not going to happen. There now is no point of you starting. We have to see what we have in Mason. If it would get that bad, I think he's laying the groundwork there. A week earlier, I never thought he would ever do it and would just ride out with Ben. But if you're going to miss the playoffs, you might as well miss with the next guy. At least see what you have.
Knowing him is what we've seen over the years.
Yeah.
Do you think it would ever get to the point where Ben, just out of personal pride, it just says, I don't have it anymore, and goes to the Steelers? And, I don't think he would retire or anything
not
like
mid-season,
that.
right?
But do you think he would ever go to the Steelers and, have a conversation with Tomlin and say, hey, I'm just not good enough right now.
Knowing Ben's ego, I don't know if he would ever say that, but maybe he would. Maybe this is part of the groundwork. Maybe there's been some of these conversations to this point. Maybe they had a conversation that we're not aware of, that no one's aware of, in which Ben said, or tried to say, give me more time. I can figure it out. Tomlin said, I'll trust you. And then he's like, okay. But, this is also a true statement. Many great athletes, Mike, as you know, have made it clear. They have said that when they're at the end of their career, they've told someone they really, really trust to let them know if they should be done, and they're no longer near the level. You're not going to be as good, but if you're embarrassing yourself out there, Drew Brees said this, because at the end, it was clear he was borderline hurting the team by being out there. His wife had to tap him on the shoulder and say, we're done. maybe Ben has that guy. Maybe his wife is helping him have those conversations. I will say this, though, Mike. If that would occur, or really even if Ben doesn't finish this year as a starter, even if Tomlin has to hook him, and this would be hard to argue, there are going to be some people that are going to say, man, Ben should have just thought of this a year ago. The Steelers should have been harder with him a year ago. He was horrible at the end of that season. Yes, he took less money. But if this decision was made a year ago, then Mason could have played this year. We could have figured things out this year. And even if not Mason, even though they signed him, there was a player out there, not a big name, not going to require much. I brought him up at the time, Sam Darnold. They could have had him for nothing. The Jets were publicly basically saying they didn't think anything of this man. Carolina got him for a late round pick. He's been fine. He's already won 3 games for the Panthers to this point. He's young. He was a former higher pick in the draft like Haskins, but he didn't have any personality issues. He actually had been playing better than Haskins, despite playing with the Jets in a horrible situation. They could have done things, even if you didn't want to bring in Darnold. See what you have with Mason. If that's going to be how this season goes, where it's going to be a 4-win season, Ben won't finish, and it'll just be Mason to see, and then Haskins probably plays, and he doesn't get it done either, and you go into the offseason unsure of the future of the QB position, having to draft someone, it would have been better to have that decided a year earlier. And especially with Ben taking less, I get him coming back, but it feels like the Steelers maybe, and I would be curious, what did they think they had in Ben this year? Did they think Ben could turn it around and be an elite quarterback again? Did they think he could be a game manager like the beginning of last season again, good enough for this team? Or maybe they should have realized what Ben really was. Still,
my guess would be the conversation or the publicly what they would say would be that they would think that a year out of the elbow injury, that he would be better. It takes a year,
you're older, but
it takes, and they thought he would be better. I would guess that would be but I don't know, honestly. I don't know if Ben's biggest problem is his I don't know if Ben's bigger problem is his arm, or his lack. Yeah, and that has nothing to do with the elbow.
No, so, that's the issue.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just that he can't move.
He cannot move, and the offensive line is not good.
Yeah, and so that has nothing. So I think it was a bad decision, but it is what it is. You can't go back and look. You got to start planning for the future, and this is going to be a conversation on both sides. It's going to be a daily thing, and hopefully Ben, realizes, or like you say, I like that point that somebody goes to him and his dad or somebody that obviously he.
In his personal life, someone away from
his personal life that says, "Hey Ben, it's time." 17, whatever. Yeah, how many years? 17 years. Gave it a good run, but it's over.
Yeah, and obviously Ben's a Hall of Famer, but again, this happened to his draft mate Eli Manning not long ago. The reason why Eli Manning, the same age as Ben, is sitting up there with Peyton Manning at Monday Night Football is because the New York Giants and Eli had to have these closed-door meetings for a year. Eli, we heard the public reports in New York media. He wanted to keep on going like Ben. He was willing to take less money, didn't want to go anywhere else, etc. Wanted one more year to fix it. The Giants basically, that is an historic franchise. The Moore family's been around a while, not a Hall of Fame coach there. But the Giants basically had to say, which you're making it clear, Mike, and you're correct. It's very, very hard. It's hard to do that. Maybe it's tougher for Tomlin than what the Giants had because he had been there the whole time. He's attached to Ben. They were quarterback coach at the hip together. But the Giants, mostly with their ownership, had to eventually say, Eli, we're not going to let you do it. And
the other difference, I think fairly significant difference in that, though, is that they already drafted Daniel Jones. He was already on the roster, and they had a first-round pick that they can go to that they thought was their quarterback of the future. The Steelers, they have Dwayne Haskins and Mason.
They need to figure it out, though.
Yeah, so if they would have drafted a quarterback with the first pick,
okay,
then I think Ben would be sitting at his home with his kids playing right now.
Yeah, that is definitely a key difference. We were actually doing a draft show live when everyone got that reaction. Kind of surprising for the nation. Daniel Jones was that pick, and he's actually been okay since then, even though the team hasn't been better. But that was, I'm sure, part of it, that after you get a couple years of a first-round draft pick, what is the point? Eli's not playing well, and arguably worse than even Ben has been playing. But yeah, eventually there you got to hook somebody. I mean, Phillip Rivers isn't around anymore. Another draft class mate. Ben is lasting longer than his draft class, even though he's not lasting longer than Brady. But who is? No one else. So you can't compare it to that level. We'll see. This is going to be a conversation not only the rest of this week, into the game, after the game. It's going to be a conversation the rest of the season, because it's going to be dissected more than the game, Mike. If the Steelers win the game because the defense creates some turnovers, but Ben doesn't play well again, it's going to be a conversation still where people are going to say, okay, now you got to win. You're saving the season a little bit. If you have Ben stay, it could go back in the tubes. That's always going to be brought up. But I do want to make something clear. Ben has taken arguably unfair criticism for many, many years. He generally speaking, he should be beloved by unanimously all Steeler fans, all media, etc. It's not really been the case over his career. Usually for Hall of Famer, that group, your home base, fans, media, ride with you forever. Ben has taken unjust due criticism, many respects over the years, not appreciated enough. However, no one should be relishing in this. There are people, like you're saying, there are people who are thrilled about
that's what annoys me.
Yeah, there are people who are relishing in it. There are people bringing up the past. There are people bringing up, oh, well, you know what? I love the wins, but he was such a bad guy in 2006, so I'm thrilled about this. Like, that's ridiculous. And a lot of people who are bringing those things up and are relishing in this, we don't know what's in their closet either. So there's a lot of hypocrisy. People are really enjoying. I saw someone's tweet out there. People are quick to enjoy what someone's been outed for, that they're doing the same thing in their private life. So right. That exists a lot. That's even connected to what's going on with Urban Meyer. Yeah. Yeah, that's what that really was tweeted for. But that goes with Ben too. People are relishing it too much. He is a Hall of Famer. He is a legend. You don't want to rub it in his face and make it a Terry Bradshaw situation. That's disrespectful to his legacy. But at the same time, you can't just let him go out there and hurt the team, because that then also would disrespect his teammates. And as much as people are annoyed with Juju and others, I think those balls were on Ben. And Ben being out there missing Juju, he's costing Juju money. Juju needs those catches to get another contract, maybe with somebody else. It is hurting the team if Ben can't hit open receivers. So we will see. They're not going to do it now. But if this keeps lingering, maybe it also needs to be TJ Watt or some veteran, or Cam Hayward, someone he really respects and goes to Ben and say, hey, I actually think you're hurting your legacy by staying out here. We have a crew. I think it's better to see we have with Mason. Maybe those conversations have to occur. Maybe Ben would rebuff them. But I think if Ben would hear from his wife, maybe from Cam Hayward, from Tomlin, from the Rooney family, he might be receptive. You got to do it the right way. As you said, this is not going to be a quick text or a quick phone call. You need several people in the room, probably the team leaders, the coach, the ownership, maybe his wife and kids need to be there and have a 3-hour conversation if that's what needs to happen, and talk about it. If that doesn't occur, you're riding with Ben. But I do think they're best to see what they have in the next guy. And if Mason keeps sucking, then I'll apologize to everyone who's been hating on him. Then we can see Haskins. He maybe will do the same thing. Then they know they have to draft somebody. We got to see the answer to this debate that'll just never freaking die. That'll do it for this show. The Steelers do play the Broncos this week, and it is a must-win no matter who is the quarterback. And obviously, Ben has to be better for them to have a chance. So does the O-line, so does the receivers, so does the defense, so do the tight ends who need used more as well. Freiermuth needs used more. A lot of problems.
I won't be buying you dinner this week.
They're a mess. Canada's play call needs to be better. If none of that happens, Mike's buying me dinner this week. Yeah. So I don't know where I got to think really which way I'm rooting, because depending on where we're going for dinner. That'll do it for this show, though. Of course, this was Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Steelers Now. Keep it here to Steelers Now, and of course this channel for the rest of our coverage throughout this week and then beyond. And I'm imagining we're going to be touching on Ben's future